If you're a business coach or do some kind of executive consulting, you're working with business people, you're working with businesses, I wanted to let you know the following thing. It's really not that hard to build an incredibly profitable consulting business, even if you don't have a lot of personal experience within the business sectors that you're coaching. Now, let me clarify that. That might sit wrong with quite a few of you. And one of the most important things that I'm always coming to say is that you are deeply out of alignment if you are trying to help people in areas around which you don't know what you're talking about. Just very quickly before we jump in, my name is Jacob Rupp. My background's actually in nonprofit work and not like fundraising or running a nonprofit. I was the front of the line person that was working with people to help them live better, more aligned lives. And after I ran into a couple of midlife crises, I realized that really the path that I was on was not actually going to be able to provide the financial freedom from, forget about financial freedom, like I couldn't pay the bills for my family, and I had to do something different. And it was really difficult for me because at the time that I realized that, I was already with 4 kids, I was already like deeply down my career path, and I didn't have the time to go back to get an MBA to start on a sales floor somewhere. I needed to make money, but I also needed to do it quickly. And I didn't want to spend all of the time, and I didn't have the money to go back and invest in professional education. Now, the great news was that I didn't have to, and neither do you. Now, again, if you're trying to figure out, do I go get some training? Do I go get a certification? Do I go get an MBA? It's really important for you to consider what I'm going to tell you now to just sort of fit this into your general theory of how things are going to work. Now, the first thing is, most importantly, you only want to help people around which the areas that you actually have expertise. Now, the reality though, and again, you could take from my personal experience or from the personal experience of the coaches that I worked with who will charge anywhere in some cases to 15 grand for, a basic engagement. I've paid someone, how much did I pay? I paid someone actually $15,000 an hour. I worked with someone that charged $250,000 an hour. I did not personally pay him that much money, but I did pay him 100 grand for his coaching program. And these people were at the absolute pinnacle of business coaching. And the crazy thing is that neither of them had come from a strong business background. So you ask yourself, like, what, is that terribly out of alignment? Here's the secret, right? When you are trying to work with companies, you want to figure out who is your ideal target. So number one, you want to figure out what are the things that I can do that if translated into a business environment could create dramatic ROI. So let's say you have an ability to create tremendous clarity of thought. You're able to quiet the noise. You're able to help people get real clear on where they want to go. So believe it or not, if you spend any time with entrepreneurs, a lot of times that's tough. People are really down in the business, working on the business, as opposed to standing and looking above the fray. Jocko Willink, one of a mentor of mine who I think is fantastic, talks a lot about that. The most important job in a battlefield. He was a Navy SEAL, and he was saying the job of the officer is not to be looking through the sight of the gun, but rather looking around at the entirety of the battlefield, right? So that's super important. Most business owners are usually dealing with so much of the day-to-day stuff because that's how business owners operate as a business owner, that getting that clarity about where we want to go is incredibly impactful. In addition, a lot of times, and I have a hard time with this, but people will sometimes say, again, don't talk about things you don't know. One of the things I found, having worked with hundreds of highly successful CEOs and entrepreneurs, is that people get to the top through friends, right? People get to the top through networks and doing partnerships with people. So one of the things that I love when I look at newer people that are trying to go into the business realm is they're posting on LinkedIn thinking that's going to do anything for them. The reality is I built my business through referrals because I had close relationships with a few entrepreneurs. I helped them, and then they referred friends and family. So you got to know who you're trying to reach and how they actually make their decisions, right? So number one, do not coach outside of the realm of what you're qualified in. That being said, you want to ask yourself, what do I know how to do, right? And think about, again, how do I say this? You want to demystify, right, the idea of a business owner. Now, on the other hand, you don't have to work with business owners. I've made more money from people that don't run big businesses than people that do. That being said, I've generated, $50,000, $60,000 or more months working exclusively with business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, why is that? Why would they trust me? I don't lie about any of my backgrounds. I'm very upfront with them, because what I've learned how to do is I've learned how to qualify and bring my expertise into the realm that they need. So again, for me, it was always about learning clarity of my own thought. How do I chart out a vision? If I know where I want to go, how do I reverse engineer the steps to get there? How do I manage close relationships? How do I have difficult conversations? Emotional regulation, a strategy around like putting a plan into place. These are all things that I had honed how to do over my life. General wellness, right? How to present, how to speak, all those things. These are all things I know how to do, right? So I was finding people who needed that, and I was leveraging a network to get there. And that's how I was able to build clients very, very quickly. So number one, you got to learn how to take what you know how to do and properly figure out how to apply it into a business setting. Secondly, and this is so important, figure out if you actually want to work with business people and which kind of business people do you want to work with. A lot of people, I actually had a woman I had worked with, and she was saying, okay, I work with Facebook and Coinbase and all these, but I was like, so then why do you want to work with me? And she said, I'm not making any money. A lot of big companies, and again, this is not specific to any of the companies I mentioned, will have a very specific amount of allocation for the amount of money they're willing to spend on professional training. Oftentimes, there's a very long line to get in that door. Oftentimes, because it's such a coveted position, they don't pay as much. I found my sweet spot working with people who were running their own businesses. In some cases, there was lots of money, in some cases, less money. But at the end of the day, trying to find like the person that ran a smaller company for me was the biggest blessing, because really they could see tremendous ROI from the work that we did and see it quickly, which justified why I can charge higher prices and be able to really help them. So figure out what you can do, figure out who you want to do it for, and then also learn how to manage your own ego. And I'll just be very upfront and candid about this. If you have not built a big business, you should not have an ego or try to showboat, I know all this kind of stuff, because that is the most disingenuous thing in the world, right? The reason why I was able to work with highly successful entrepreneurs was I had a tremendous amount of respect for them and for the game. I really looked up to them. So there was a lot of honor that I was able to provide, where it wasn't that there was some kind of like an ego play at stake. I was never the sage on the stage because I couldn't be. On the flip side as well, I was always very good at asking questions, because it wasn't about me giving them advice. I'm not acting as a consultant that's going to help you, scale your real estate practice. Because again, I never really scaled a real estate practice. I didn't own real estate, when I got started. So bottom line was, I was very much focused on what I knew how to do. And I was very good at asking questions and really keeping my ego in check. Because if your ego gets out of the way and your clients feel like, there's some kind of anything other than you're there to support them, you're there 100% to help them get where they want, you're going to be gone real quick. And then finally, you have to be really clear on, how do I enroll clients? How do I create trust quickly? And how do I get them to want to invest with me without working for free, without spending lots of time, having a fast sales cycle? Because one of the craziest things is, especially if you don't have a lot of background in business people are upfront. They want to know what they're getting. They want to know what it looks like. They want to know what they can expect. What's the ROI? Tell me what it is. And if you have this long process where you're not really able to be upfront, you're like, well, let's see how it goes. That's never going to resonate, because people want to work with people that get them. So the clearer you can be, the more you can work on your ego, the more that you can have a really clear, straightforward process to enrolling clients, the faster you're going to be able to get your business off the ground. So if anything that I've talked about with you in this framework is helpful for you, and you'd like to grow your practice, maybe you're only starting out, maybe you're only making $10,000 to $20,000 a month, you'd like to get to 30 or 40, maybe you're at 40 and you're ready to go to 80, please don't hesitate, reach out. I'd love to chat with you, see how I could help you grow your business. Thank you so much.